right? You're just spending the
Yeah,
card, you don't even know. And so with
yeah,
this, it's kind of the same. It's like you don't even really have it. So it's not like you're as emotionally tied to it, I guess,
yeah,
as, you know.
exactly. Yeah, there's no, if someone hands you £500,000 in cash, that's something physical and tangible.
Right.
Whereas the
Right.
crypto, it's even separated from digital normal money, digital fiat. And with the NFTs as well, there's a lot of, I suppose, brand kudos around it that I don't know if you see even on LinkedIn now, a lot of people are changing their profile pictures. I've done it on mine to an NFT you own. And so all these guys who have bought CryptoPunks and the Bored Ape Yacht Club is the other one
Right.
of the big ones. They're all changing their profile pictures to the ape they own, and it's that thing of it's like a team recognition thing that you can look at
Yeah.
someone and go, "Oh, I know that. I
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
It's
in
an
the same club
inclusion.
here."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you all start part of this family then that you can chat to each other about it. Whereas being just rich in Ethereum isn't quite as interesting for social media because you don't want
Right.
to start posting and go, "Oh, I'm a millionaire now." But if you
Post your balance every day on all your
Yeah,
wallets, right? I mean,
look at
nobody's
this
gonna
quick
do that.
screenshot of my account.
Right, right. And then everybody would just point and say
Yeah,
it's a scam. You know what I mean? It
yeah,
would be like, but yeah, it's a way like people find their tribe, right? You find your,
yes,
like,
that's it. Yeah,
because this is
yeah,
still in that, early stage where it's more mainstream, but it's not mainstream, right? There's still, and I guess it depends on where you are in your environment, maybe too. If you're in an area or group, you already have an established group, but it does kind of feel like, it's just different, right? We're not going in like, on AOL Messenger in 1996 and finding our ICQ or whatever those
yeah,
messaging platforms were back then, right? We're these are different ways. It's just a completely different way to meet people and find people. And again, like I said, find your tribe. And
yeah.
it's really interesting. It's just really interesting to me how this all plays out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone suspected it would increase as much as it has done over the last few months, particularly. Um, but I think it all ties together when you look at the entire crypto marketplace. We like to say, Bitcoin and Ethereum are separate things, but at the minute, they're still all viewed as one big
Right.
heap of cryptocurrencies.
Right.
So when one goes up, it draws more people in, the prices go up. People have been holding it for a while, they suddenly find themselves rich. And yeah, they want to show it off, but they don't know how. So it's like buying, a Versace or a Gucci handbag and carrying it around to the shops. You change your profile picture to an ape and everyone goes, we know you're rich. We don't
Right.
overtly say it, but we,
Right.
we recognize that.
Right. And then the club members find each other. So then they
Yeah.
all, yeah. Yeah. So you had a hand in creating a movie called The Fake Fluencer, which is
Yeah.
about an online crypto scam. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like where the idea came from and how you got involved?
So the director of the movie, it was probably just over a year ago now. The director got in touch with me through LinkedIn. Again, I was on there talking about crypto things. And he said, look, I'm doing this project. We think we're going to do a movie. Here's sort of an outline of what's happening. And it's around this guy called Tom Gillespie. And he's making a documentary about this project called Scootercoin. And Bitman360, who's a scam artist who's created this project and stole some money off one of Tom's relatives. And Rich got in touch with me and said, look, we're doing this. Would like to have a chat with us about it. And it was very different to how projects normally work. Rich was very clear. This is Rich Teller, so he's a director from Bitcoin Studios. He was clear that he wanted to be a very inclusive model. It's not, here's my vision, now you go and do this bit. It was, how can we all
Right.
do it?
Yeah.
And I got to meet some incredible people working on that. There's a guy who's a developer who's in part of the project who I now talk to quite regularly. There's a guy who builds VR worlds because part of the film is filmed actually in VR.
Mm-hmm. And VR is virtual reality.
Virtual reality, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We actually had virtual reality avatars we all used, and we went off and we did it like you would normally film, just we were all in VR instead. It's all very surreal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, at the time, it seemed completely sensible that we'd got to that stage. But it's like one of those crazy things when you look back and go, if you just come at this from the end, it looks bonkers. But it's sort of thing as well that there was no way I was going to turn down the chance to be part of a movie project because that's the reason I left my old job was
Right. To be able to do this kind of cool stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and to take risks and do this sort of project.
Right.
And then once the movie was almost ready for release, I was doing more work in NFTs. A couple of the guys had talked about them, said, well, why don't we do an NFT series for the movie? I've got a project called Apes versus Hedgies, which I released just as a proof of concept almost of NFTs and that base process from building an audience through to creating the product and how it physically works.
Right.
And I said to the guys, look, I've done this one. We could just use this model. We could mint a load of NFTs for the movie, see what happens, see if anyone's interested in them. And I thought, we'd get a few hundred, maybe a couple of thousand would get minted and it'd be great. Last time I checked, I think there were over 60,000 of them had been minted.
Oh my gosh.
So there's now 60,000 fake Fluencer NFTs floating around. And they do sell. People are actually buying them for actual crypto and trading them. But more importantly, for the marketing model of the film, that there's 60,000 of these items out there all acting as mini billboards and getting interest and getting people talking about the film. And for me, that's where NFTs start to become really interesting. It's not just here's a piece of artwork. It's here's something that either gives you access to another product or it does something more than just looking nice and being, I own this.
Yeah.
I've talked to companies about having it as sports tickets, about giving premium access to people to events if they've got certain NFTs. Mm-hmm. And there's a whole possibility around it. And we actually started work. We had a meeting yesterday for this pseudo sequel of the fake Fluencer. So Tom's going to be looking at a product called Hex, which is quite, I'll say, infamous in the crypto space. And we sort of had a meeting around that. And we're looking at doing more things with NFTs for that potentially, and how that could work for promoting the film and for maybe giving people access to the movie, that if we release, say, 10,000 tokens, then you can only go to see the movie if you've got a token kind of thing, and then they get resold that way. There's a whole range of options you can do with it, but because it's true ownership, it's really opens doors. So
again, I was talking about this as like a perspective shift, right? Where it gets so out of the box thinking. And I love your story because, like you said, you were unhappy where you were, and like I'm sure many of us, we spend years saying that, right? We spend years saying, and I was actually just talking to one of my friends about this, like we were like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I don't mean like today, right now, as we're here, like in general, what are we doing? Because we say we want these things, and then we try to say that we can't do these things because of a pandemic or because of a lockdown or because of whatever, right? And there's always going to be the things that are going to hold us back or in our mind perceive, right? Make us feel like we can't live free in an unfree world. Therefore, we're not creating what we want, right? We say we want these things, but yet we're not creating. But you did it. Like you went out there. And obviously, maybe I'm guessing if you knew there was going to be a pandemic, you probably would have held off and kept your job. But
I might have done, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be very depressed now, but I would have done it.
Right. But that's not the way the universe works, right? We make decisions and then we see what happens, right? And I always believe that, that's what it was meant to happen in this order then, because it couldn't have happened any other way, right? These are the decisions I made. But you took a risk. You left your job, a secure job that would have paid you well, but it would have left you unhappy. It sounds like, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like.
To give you a comparison, I used to do, I don't know if you've ever heard of rucking, where you wear a backpack with big heavy weights on.
Okay, yeah.
And the closest description I found that on my last day when I walked out of the office, it just felt like I had a backpack on and just dumped it off and just walked away and went, that's it, I'm done now.
Yeah.
I handed my laptop in. I didn't have access to any of the systems anymore. And I was like, this is great.
Yeah, it's done.
The lack of money coming in hadn't quite hit me at that point. I was slightly on a euphoria high at that point. But yeah, it's like I literally felt like I'd taken off a massive weighty backpack and just dumped it on the step and walked away from it.
Yeah, the games are over, right? We're done. We're done here. And so, doing that, you took the risk, you went out, some shit happened, right? Shit hit the fan, but you survived it, right? You worked your ass off. It sounds like you were, I'm listening to you talk. I mean, again, not trying to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like, even with the risks, you still have the strong, the belief in yourself and what you were doing was stronger than your fear of the risks, which it sounds like was able to help you propel you forward and allow you to be able to do cool stuff like this that you wouldn't be doing if you were still sitting in that job.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's always the imposter syndrome does suck. And I found out at the start that I was going off and talking to these companies, and they said, I mean, I published my rates on my website, but my rates haven't changed since I started. And one of the companies said to me, how much do you charge per hour? And I went, £250. I literally pulled the number out of the air and he went, oh, that seems a bit low, but yeah, fair. I was like, damn it.
Why didn't I say 300, 400? Yeah.
But that's the thing. Within 3 or 4 months, I'd had enough positive feedback from the people I was working with to get through that imposter syndrome. But early on, that was brutal, going to these companies, and particularly when you've worked in a traditional hierarchy where, the manager walks past and you doff your cap and go, hello, sir. Please, sir, don't fire me today. And
which is like crazy, like that's what we're like, that's how we're all taught, that we're taught to like, oh, yes, please. Okay. Like, no, like, it's like, ugh.
And that's the thing I like about crypto and blockchain, that you don't get that. I talk to CEOs and founders quite regularly, and, they're normal people. I'll ping them messages on LinkedIn. I send them memes occasionally on the phone.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very different approach to how you deal with people in the space, because of this decentralized, trustless model that you get, that everyone has a part to play, and there isn't just one person sat at the front who really somehow is worth 1,000 times more than everyone else, even though they don't really do it.
Right. The dynamic has completely changed in this space. It really has. I mean, and even like, traditional companies try to, let's take remote working, right? Like, when prior, some companies were very archaic about that. Oh, people weren't going to work if they're at home, all this kind of like, wanting to babysit people kind of thing, and then you go into what we went through in 2020, and then everybody overnight shifted to working from home. And now I'm seeing people like are being told that they have to go back into an office. And it's like, you can't unsee the fact that we worked from home and we're productive. You know what I mean? So now you're trying to do like go back, or like, it doesn't make sense. And then the crypto space, the dynamic is just so different, because everybody is, it's not that old school, like, hierarchy. It just isn't there.
It is. That's the thing. It's with crypto, everything moves so fast that you can't afford to say, when the old job, I'd be like, we've got a problem, and say, okay, we'll arrange a meeting for it next week. Like, if you need a meeting and there's a problem, it's got to be solved in the next 30 minutes, or your token might be worthless, or something else might have launched and completely crippled you
and replaced you. Yeah.
And all these companies I'm working with, they're all doing exceptionally well, but they're fully remote teams. Whereas again, at the old job, I was sat and I actually worked on a laptop, dialing in through a remote connection at my desk, but I couldn't work from home.
Right.
And I was like this, and looking back, I'm like, what? This is so bizarre to look back.
Like, the madness that we like all just accepted that, I guess, like, because we didn't, I mean, that's one of the benefits I think of 2020 was having that perspective shift, as painful as it was, because it was painful for all of us, but having that shift and being able to see clearly now, I guess, I think in some ways we're still seeing clearly because there's still things unfolding, but being able to do that was definitely needed.
Oh yeah. It has to. It's bizarre to me when, again, like you say, when I look at companies now and that I'm talking to people I know who are still working for them, and they're saying, oh yeah, we've got to go back to the office now. But why?
Yeah.
What bizarre idea.
And why do you accept that? Like, why do you accept that idea? Why don't you make arrangements for yourself, or push back, or do something different? That's
the
my
idea
question.
that somehow you should be paid less because you're working remotely.
Right.
No. That's my personal bugbear. And then the companies say, oh, we'll pay you less than that.
No. You're not paying more. Right, exactly. I'm paying electricity. I'm using my space, my internet, all of this stuff. Like, that's a BS excuse. No. So through all this, like I said, you went through you had this, this dream and you followed it, right? And shit hit the fan, and that's okay. You're still here. We're talking about it. And so if there's listeners here that are in a similar situation, I'm sure, this is, I'm sure a lot of people are, especially now with the way everything is. What's some advice that you would offer to the listeners to really help them maybe get started, or to follow their dream, or even if they're going through this and it's not going as planned, to help them get to the other side?
Probably don't quit your full-time day job at the start of a pandemic would be high up the list. Maybe do it part-time first or something. But basically it comes down to, a lot of it is the grind. And I know entrepreneurs like to go online and talk about they get up at 5 a.m., they do a 10-mile run, drink an egg yolk and all this nonsense.
Right.
But particularly when you're